Well, hello. Thank you for joining me today. We'll go ahead and get started here. I'm glad you can join me for this presentation on experiential learning opportunities at U.S. research institutions. And if you're not familiar with the term experiential learning, what we mean by that is learning through experiences or learning by doing. And this is really one of the benefits or defining characteristics of U.S. higher education. We believe that learning is truly enhanced when you can apply concepts to a real-world setting, and we certainly know that learning is not limited to the classroom. So that kind of idea of a well-rounded or holistic education is an important part of a U.S. higher education experience, and that's really kind of our starting point for the topic today. During this presentation, I will cover a number of topics, but before we kind of get into the main content areas, I wanted to let you know that you're welcome to ask questions into the Q&A box. I will be waiting to answer all those questions at the end, but I will be sure to save plenty of time, about 10 to 15 minutes at the end, to answer any questions you have, so feel free to enter them as we go. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Shannon O'Hagan, and I am the Assistant Director for International Recruitment at the University of Missouri, which is located centrally in the U.S. in Columbia, Missouri. My contact information is on the screen here, but I will also be providing this at the end of the presentation, so don't worry about trying to take a picture of it now. Also, this presentation will be available, it's being recorded now, so it will be available after we're done for you to view later if you'd like to do so. As a brief introduction to provide you a little bit of context, I work at the University of Missouri, which is commonly called Mizzou. Mizzou is a large, comprehensive research university. We have about 30,000 students, including international students from more than 100 countries. We also have more than 300 degree programs from bachelor's through PhD. So there's a lot of different disciplines that you can study at my university. One of the reasons that my university is relevant to this particular topic is because we are, as I mentioned, a research university. We are actually one of only 34 public U.S. universities in the Association of American Universities, or AAU. And the AAU is a select group of universities in the U.S. and Canada that are dedicated to research and high academic standards. At my university, we also have the educational philosophy known as the Missouri Method. And what that is learning by doing. And so it's really a great place for me to be able to provide examples of the different types of experiential learning opportunities, because it's really part of the fabric of my institution. It applies to all of our disciplines, and it really influences the way that we educate our students. So as an overview, these are the main topics we'll be covering today. I'll certainly be talking about the benefits of experiential learning and some of the different types of experiences you can expect on a U.S. research campus. And I'll be using the University of Missouri to highlight some specific examples to give you an idea of what that might look like for a student on campus. I've also been asked to speak briefly about my university's response to COVID-19, so I'll be sure to do that at the end of the presentation. And then I'll open it up for questions and answers. So as a reminder, you can enter those into that Q&A chat box. So getting started, I think something that's helpful to do is to start by thinking into the future. Kind of close your eyes from wherever you are and imagine what your future might look like. So getting admitted to a U.S. university is really just the starting point. If you can kind of think beyond that, picture the types of experiences you want to have as a student in university. If you think a little bit further down the road to even when you're graduating from the university and applying to either graduate school or to a career of your choice, think of the types of experiences you want to have had as a student in university. What do you want to do with your time as a university student? And so these are the types of experiences we're going to be talking about today. Because when you graduate from a U.S. university, you want to be able to be successful in whatever your path is, whether that's graduate school or entering into the workforce. And in either case, when you think about your future resume or CV, your academic program and where you attend university is really only going to take a couple lines on that resume or CV. So how are you going to fill in the rest of that document? What types of experiences are you going to have that'll help set you apart and make you a strong candidate that has a well-rounded experience with skills to offer? So one of the great starting points on US campuses for you to have experiential learning is actually through on-campus housing. We in the US, many US universities require students to live on campus or recommend that students live on campus. And the reason for this is because studies have shown that students who live on campus tend to be more successful in their academics. They tend to stay connected and get engaged with the campus environment. And there's a number of reasons for that. Really, the US housing experience is not just about having a place to live. It's also not just about establishing community. There's ties to the actual learning environment and experience. And so you'll see different types of intentional programming related to academics as well as your living environment. So some of the common types would be living and learning communities, as well as first-year interest groups, where you're intentionally connected with other students who have shared interests and sometimes shared courses, so that you have kind of a built-in study group and network of support in your coursework. There's also great opportunities for leadership development through things like Residence Hall Association, which is kind of like its own governing body and student organization for residence halls, as well as student employment opportunities through housing. There's also many different resources tied to campus housing, from professional staff to student staff, to different programs and even academic resources on campus. I know at my campus we have built-in tutoring and different writing center type resources available that are easily accessible to students who are living in our on-campus housing. And to give you one example, this is one of our current international students who's also an international student ambassador for us. And you see she's from China and she is a business administration major, but she also works in the residence halls as a resident advisor. So she lives on the floor with other students, but she also works for the residence hall and helps support first-year students and other students in that building and on her floor where she lives. And what's great about this is that not only does it provide employment experience, but it also provides good leadership development, communication skills, interpersonal skills, and programming skills as well. So it's a really great experience for students to learn as they're living on campus. Getting engaged on campus is a big part of US culture. There are so many ways to get involved that sometimes it can almost be a little bit intimidating for students at first. But the good thing is that there are many resources available to help you succeed in this way. And so on my campus, for example, there's more than 600 student clubs and organizations. And so you can really kind of find your community, find things that are of passion to you. And these organizations are everything from academics to social, cultural, religious, really all across the board, politics. And so students can find ways to get involved and to develop leadership skills, particularly as they progress from year to year. A great thing about this as well is that sometimes there's leadership programs built in to these types of experiences. And there's also resources to help you navigate the process. So there's professional staff to help you along the way. On my campus, we even have something called involvement ambassadors, which are current students who can help you to figure out how to get involved on campus and some opportunities that will align with your particular interests and your academics. An organization I wanted to spotlight is our Missouri International Student Council. This is a wonderful organization on my campus. It serves, as you see, like the umbrella organization for all international students. And I think they're special because they serve not only from a programming standpoint, which they do a great job of, community building, certainly, but they also essentially serve as kind of a student government specific to international students, where they really represent the international student voice and advocate for international student needs on campus. So this is one of 600 organizations that you can get involved with. Another area that provides good opportunities for experiential learning are student competition groups. And this is one where I feel is less known when I'm speaking with prospective students, but is a really great way for you to gain experience beyond the classroom that's truly applicable to a real world setting. And this takes different forms. I think the best way is to highlight some examples. So you'll find this across many different academic disciplines, but to give you an example, our College of Engineering, as you see, has many different competition teams that students can be a part of. So in the previous slide, you saw a photo of our Formula One race team. Another one that's pretty neat is that we have the Mizzou Eco Racing, where students build race cars based on alternate energy. So they create a race car that's different in that way. And so you'll see there's some other competition groups that students can also do that have ties to particular academic areas, but can also be interdisciplinary within engineering. And speaking of interdisciplinary, there's also many student competition groups that have ways for students to connect with students in other disciplines. So this one, the RJI Student Innovation Competition, is a great example because it involves teams from journalism, engineering, and business. And so students not only learn about their own field, but they learn how to interact with students from other disciplines. And why this is helpful is because in the real world, you will also engage with people from other disciplines. And so it gives you some really great experience in learning how to navigate that and working towards a common goal. What's also nice about this particular competition is that you get coaching from faculty mentors to help you along the way. And some of our competition groups are not even tied to a particular academic program. So at Mizzou, entrepreneurship is a huge part of our university culture. There are many ways for student entrepreneurs to take their ideas to the next level. And one of those is through a competition that's modeled after the show Shark Tank. So if you're not familiar with that show, people pitch their ideas, their business ideas, to receive startup funding. And in the same way, our students have that opportunity to pitch their unique ideas, no matter their academic major, to receive startup money to help with their particular ideas and ventures. And they receive thousands of dollars to pursue those projects. So one example you see here is actually a student from agriculture, and she was one of the top winners from last year, where she won startup money to support her project. And what she invented was a fitness tracker that was made for cows. So it could track the physical activity of cows as a way to track their healthy habits. So pretty neat idea there. There are also competition groups outside of the university itself. And so we certainly encourage students to provide resources to support them in these ventures. And so this is one very recent example where we had 2 students related to our film areas, so film studies and digital storytelling, who entered an international competition, and they were 2 of only 38 among 1,700 films submitted to a particular competition, and their films will now be showcased at Cannes Film Festival through this particular area of the festival. So it's pretty neat the types of things students can get involved in and gain really great exposure. Another category of experiential learning that's very important and certainly a big part of a research university, as I mentioned previously, is undergraduate research. So that's one of the great things about research universities, is that there tends to be great resources behind this. And this isn't limited to, as we say here, just test tubes and lab coats. It's really across many different disciplines. So all of our different academic areas have ways for students to engage in research. And they can get involved in projects happening with graduate students, with faculty, or even their own projects. So even as an undergraduate student, they can be contributing to the field to further the information available. What's nice about research at Mizzou is that we have an office dedicated to help students in this area. We happen to be top 10 in the US for undergraduate research. And overall, we have a budget of $205 million each year to support research endeavors. So that sheer, the resources behind it is why research universities can be very beneficial to students who have an interest in learning through research. Now this, as I mentioned, goes across many, well, all truly disciplines on our campus. One I just chose to spotlight was biochemistry because it's one that's truly interdisciplinary on our campus. As you see here, there's 30 research groups on our campus tied to biochemistry. And what's neat about it is that we have many different resources on our campus that are particularly unique to have all in one place. So medicine, agriculture, engineering, veterinary medicine, all in the same campus. We also happen to have the highest powered research reactor in the US on a college campus. So there's really state-of-the-art research happening that benefits industry, benefits society, and benefits the university itself. Now, undergraduate research, the office itself puts on all kinds of events and opportunities for students in many different disciplines to showcase the research that they're involved in. So these are just some of the examples of things that happen throughout the year for students to participate in research activities. Another element of experiential learning is student employment. I mentioned this briefly when highlighting one of our students, but this can really apply to any student on campus who wants to seek campus employment. So with a student visa, you're eligible to work up to 20 hours per week with the most common visa type, which is F1. And not only do you gain experience and wages, but you also are gaining valuable skills. Now this may or may not be tied to your particular major. So your actual employment might be with, say, the recreation center or a campus office, perhaps dining services or residence hall. So if you're an engineering major, it may not be directly related. However, it could be. So in some cases, students will have work in a lab and they might be paid to do that. So you'll find a variety of different types of work, but regardless of that, there's good ways to gain experience and skills through those types of opportunities and to be connected on campus. One example I wanted to highlight is one of our wonderful student workers named Camila, who is a biomedical engineering student, but she actually manages a lot of our social media outreach. So she uses a different skill set that she doesn't always get to use with engineering, and she's quite good at it. So it's kind of nice for her to use some of her skills that she doesn't always use academically. And what's neat about Camila is that she's part of the Smart Work Mizzou program, which is unique to Mizzou in that students can be placed in a campus job, essentially be hired, before they even arrive on campus. And this is a special program for international students at Mizzou. Internships are certainly a popular opportunity on college campuses. It's something I get asked about quite a lot with students when they want to know about internship opportunities. And this is something where it truly is an important learning experience and a great way for you to get experience working with true industry. And so there are many different types of internships that you'll find on a US college campus. And another good benefit of a US research university is, again, just kind of the resources behind being able to support students in finding those types of internships. And so students do find internships really locally, regionally, globally, in many different types of fields. And so these do vary in terms of whether they're paid or unpaid, but there are often options where students can earn course credit while they're completing those internships. At Mizzou, we have career services that help students to find these internships. With our business students, for example, it's a required part of the experience, but we do have 5,000 potential employers that visit our campus each year through things like career fairs and workshops, so students can make those connections to industry and find strong internships. I'll give you a few examples here. So Mariana is one of our students from Brazil, and she, as you see here, has a couple of campus jobs where she worked for a local newspaper, a couple newspaper, campus newspaper that is, as well as online magazine. And then she has had 2 really impressive summer internships in Brazil as a writing intern. As part of the J School or journalism school, they have really structured journalism programs as well. So some of those are highlighted here. So you see in Washington, DC, New York, Barcelona, Brussels, London. so students can apply to be part of these programs, as well as study abroad programs. Through business, there's many opportunities available, but we actually have an international trade center on our campus, which is tends to be a popular internship opportunity. So students can get involved in global market research projects for Missouri businesses. Study abroad is another great way to gain additional experience. So with international students, you can study abroad in Missouri and then study abroad again through any number of different types of opportunities here. And oftentimes students can still earn course credit as well as transfer their scholarships for these study abroad experiences. One example to highlight is our Teach Abroad program. So students in education can do teaching internships in different locations around the world where they gain really valuable experience for a different type of educational system. And with all of these different types of experiential learning opportunities, there is support along the way. So I know I've thrown a lot of information at you about all these different types of resources available on US campuses and at Mizzou, but the good thing is that you don't have to figure it all out at once. You don't have to figure it all out alone. So you'll see any number of offices to really support any aspect of what you're looking for. So anywhere from academic tutoring to career services, there's someone to help you to be successful in pursuing these different opportunities. And we started this by talking about thinking about the future. And so I kind of wanted to bring that back around to thinking about outcomes. This isn't something that we just talk about without being able to show you that it's true and that it works. So looking at recent graduates, our students are successful in finding career placement, whether in graduate school or industry within 6 months of graduation. So at Mizzou, that's 92%. And then the second chart you see here probably is a little hard to read on the screen, but what's really neat about it is it shows you that students, on the left-hand side are the students' areas of study. On the right-hand side are different industries. So by gaining different types of experiences, you'll see that you're prepared to work in any number of industries. So you're not just learning information that's only applicable to one particular industry in many cases. So I think that's an exciting outcome of experiential learning. So my advice for you is to participate, to get involved, to try new things, to kind of take some risks and try something that maybe is uncomfortable, unfamiliar to you, and to certainly ask for help along the way, because that's what all those services are there to help and support you. And then I wanted to very briefly, before I wrap up and go into Q&A, just provide a little bit of information for you about our international admissions process in case you're curious for what we require for students wanting to apply to the university. For us, it's a pretty straightforward process. We accept either the Mizzou application or the common application. Both are submitted online. And then we'll look at your academic transcripts and require a $65 application fee. We then would need some form of English proficiency exam, such as the TOEFL or IELTS. We accept a number of other exams as well. And then we do not require the SAT or ACT for admission. So those are optional, but we do require them for scholarship consideration. It's important to note that we're also rolling admissions, so we do not have a set deadline. We are still accepting applications for fall 2020 and will continue to do so. And I'll get into our flexibility with that in just a minute, because I know with current circumstances, there certainly is flexibility if you have challenges in submitting documents on time. We do also have scholarships available. So this lists our scholarships for first-year students. So the top scholarship you see listed there is our Stamp Scholars Award, which is our competitive-based scholarship, which does require additional materials and a separate application process. But the other two scholarships you listed are automatic scholarships that are awarded based on SAT or ACT scores. So as long as you submit those scores and meet those requirements, you would automatically receive those awards. And there is not a particular deadline for submitting those. The Stamp Scholars Award, however, that competitive one, does have a December 1st deadline. We also have scholarships available for transfer students. So for those of you who have completed some university studies, some study after high school at a college or university, either in the US or internationally, you would be considered a transfer student, and so those scholarships are based on grade point average, so the grades that you have received based on those studies. We even have scholarship available to students who begin in our intensive English center, or intensive English program, that is. So if you do begin full-time with our intensive English program, you would receive a scholarship once you continue on to undergraduate study, where you'd essentially be paid back for the tuition and fees you paid into the IEP program. Now I just wanted to briefly touch on Mizzou's response to COVID-19. And I think the most important thing I want to highlight is that we understand that these are uncertain times and stressful times in many cases because of the uncertainty and anxiety around that, not knowing what the next weeks or even months will bring. And so we certainly are trying to be as transparent as possible, as flexible as possible with students in meeting the requirements that we have. And so it is a situation certainly where it seems to be changing rapidly and day by day. So I can only tell you where things currently stand, and just know if you have any questions, certainly email us and we're happy to advise you one-on-one based on your particular situation. But some of the things that we have done for prospective students, considering some of the changes that have been happening. So for fall 2020 applicants, we typically ask for materials to be received by June 1st. That deadline is extended for both applications and materials, so we are being flexible on when we can receive those items. So just communicate with us and we'll work with you. Additionally, we typically require TOEFL or IELTS scores or a few other exams. We are now accepting the Duolingo English test for students who have been impacted by the situation. So if you've been unable to access a testing center up to this point, we will accept Duolingo English. Email us about that if you have any questions. And then if you have any curiosity or questions about the university's response and as related to current students, these websites can be really helpful resources. Actually, that first one there is kind of tied to admissions and some frequently asked questions. That second one listed is more about the university's response overall. So certainly you can check out those websites or contact us anytime with any questions you might have. I do also want to let you know that although we're now working remotely, so international admissions staff is no longer physically in the office. I'm actually talking to you from my kitchen table right now. But we're still very much connected and very much here to support you. So certainly if you do have questions, never hesitate to contact us because we're happy to help and serve you. And I have just a couple minutes before we turn it over to Q&A, but I wanted to let you know that we do have international student ambassadors as well. And these are current international students on our campus who can really provide a great perspective on the types of experiences they've had at Mizzou in experiential learning or otherwise. So they're also still connected, most of them are, and so we do have that website there where you can go on. If you want to chat with an international student ambassador, we'll help get that set up for you so that you can ask questions on what it's like to study at Mizzou. So with that, I will go ahead and switch it over to questions for you all. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A box now. So I'll wait just a couple minutes to see if anybody does have questions. I'll also use this opportunity to let you know that you are welcome to email me. My email address is on the screen there. It's ohagans@missouri.edu. And that is the QR code for our WeChat for our institutional page, so you can read more about different postings for the University of Missouri through our WeChat page. So with that, I'll just wait a few minutes just to see if we have any questions come in. Okay, great question. So someone has asked, does my campus help students finding an internship? Yes, we certainly do. So on our campus, we have a career center. There's actually kind of a centralized career office, and then many of the academic units have their own career office. So it's kind of a network of career centers on campus. And what's great about that is that there's wonderful resources to help students find internships. There's kind of an overall database where students can certainly search for internship opportunities. There's also internship fairs where students can connect directly with internship providers. They can interview on campus. If they're looking for external internships, there's also resources to help them. And then some academic programs have specific ties to industry where students can apply for kind of more structured internships that are recurring each year. So there's any number of internships available. Something that's also perhaps helpful to know is that it's not just about the internship placement either. So there's also building towards the skills needed to find a successful internship. So starting freshman year, whether that's career exploration, to developing interview skills, to writing a resume, those types of things. There's all kinds of workshops and one-on-one advising that happens with students so that they can be successful in finding strong internships. That's a great question. So we have a question about how we handle AP exam scores if credit is given. And then if we'll accept the scores for 45-minute exams will be given online this year. Great question. So, sorry, I bumped my computer there. So as far as AP exam scores go, we do accept them. How it works is that when we get the scores, we actually have on our website a list of the different AP exams and how those transfer in for university credit. So students can find out in advance what score they need to receive in order to receive credit for that particular area. This year we are being flexible with the type of exams given. So if a student only has access to those through AP, then we are working to accept those. We are waiting currently for an official policy from university leadership on that, but I have had information actually just this morning that we are being flexible with that. So we're working with students who are having to take the online portion. So certainly email us if you have any questions about it, or I can also send you the website that shows the exam scores and what we would need to see to receive credit for that. Someone wants to know if we can send SAT subject scores. Good question. So at my university, we don't really do much with the subject score. We're just looking at your typical SAT score, so critical reading and math when it comes to scholarships. Subject scores previously, some of our academic units used to kind of look at those, but now honestly we don't so much. So at my institution, that's not something that's really part of our process. You'll find that some institutions do, some don't. So it's something that will vary from one university to another. Someone wants to know what we're looking for in an applicant. That's a great question as well. So at my university, our admission process is fairly straightforward. The good thing is that we are a growing university where we have the capacity to bring in more students. So we don't want to create unnecessary barriers for students that we feel have been successful in high school and who have kind of demonstrated that through all four years of their high school experience and meet our minimum requirements. So as long as students meet our requirements for admission, they would be admitted into the university. So that's based on grade point average, then English proficiency exam scores. Then again, for scholarships, we are looking for a little bit of higher level there based on SAT or ACT. Now, where it gets into a little bit more specifics is if you're looking to apply to our honors program, which is for students who are looking for kind of a more rigorous academic experience. It's kind of like a liberal arts, small liberal arts experience within a large university. And so if you're looking for the honors college, the honors program, then that is where we would require some additional materials like an essay, letters of recommendation. And so for that, we're looking for kind of a well-rounded applicant who has a balance of academics as well as extracurriculars. But in terms of admission itself to most programs, it's more straightforward than that. It is just based on academics. Great questions. Let's see, are there any more questions coming in, or I'll give you just one more minute, and then if not, then I will go ahead and wrap it up, but I'll just give you one more second to kind of think it over, see if there's anything else you want to ask me before we wrap up. Oh, there we go, one came in. What is the community like? Good question. So our community, we are located in Columbia, Missouri, which is located centrally in the US. We're what's called a college town or a US university town. So it's about 117,000 people, so it's not tiny. I mean, that's small by certain standards, but in the US it's not tiny, but it's not big either. It's just a really nice environment for university study. So the town itself was founded around the university. There's a couple other small colleges here in town. And so there's a lot of pride and support for our university. You'll see this pennant behind me and our colors, black and gold. You'll see that all around town. There's a lot of pride. And so it's really nice because our campus is actually adjacent to our small downtown area where there are shops and restaurants within walking distance. And it's consistently on list as, you know, a top place to live, a top college town in the US. So it's a really lovely environment. I actually come from a little bit of a bigger city. And so when I moved to this smaller college town, I wasn't sure if I would like it, to be honest. And I've been so pleasantly surprised to see just how much a college town has to offer. And with the university being there, it brings a lot of culture, a lot of art, and just a lot of excitement and energy of things going on. We even have our own international film festival that happens each year. So there really is a lot to a college town. And then one other thing that's helpful to know perhaps is that we do have our own regional airport even, so it's not isolated by any means. So I often use that when I'm flying internationally. We also have larger airports in Kansas City and St. Louis, which are about 2 hours on either side of our city, and there's a shuttle that goes to both of those. So it's a great place to live. There's also nature, parks, all those things. So Columbia, Missouri, check it out. It's a lovely environment. So now there's a question about how many students are in one class. That's also a good question. This is something that will vary. Certainly, our average class size is 30. So students, especially, you know, their first year or so, there do tend to be some courses, some classes that are larger in size. There's some that are more auditorium style, is what that's called. But often those are even broken up into smaller study groups and class sizes. So it's important for students to realize that it'll vary depending on their academic program. And oftentimes as you continue into your studies, you'll have smaller and smaller courses and lab work and things like that. So there is a range there, but our average is 30. Let's see, what's unique about this university? There's many things that are unique about Mizzou. We were founded in 1839 as the first university west of the Mississippi River, so we've been around quite a while. Fun fact is that we have the first school of journalism in the world, so journalism happens to be one of the things that we're most well known for. So there's a rich tradition there, and journalism is also responsible for the educational philosophy that I described earlier, which is the Missouri method, or learning by doing. So that philosophy is unique in that you know, there's many universities that do have experiential learning opportunities, but it's something where it's just so ingrained into our culture that it's really throughout all of our programs. And I think that that's unique as far as the level we take it to of giving students those hands-on experiences in all disciplines, and that students can really start getting involved in those types of opportunities as early as their freshman year. So it's not that they have to wait till their senior year to get involved in research. They can start doing it right away. So it's a pretty great part of it. And then there's a question about how easy is it to change majors? So it tends to be pretty simple. Well, everything is like, well, it depends a little bit, but for the most part, it's not a complicated process. It's very common for students to change their mind. I don't know the average, but I've heard, you know, 3 times perhaps. So students, it's common for students to change their mind. It's common for students not to know. It's also common for students on our campus to study more than one thing. So I mentioned, you know, journalism just now, and journalism is one where most of our journalism students will have at least a minor in a different area, if not a double major. And so there is flexibility there. Now, most commonly students kind of have that flexibility within those first 2 years is when it's kind of the best time to change if you're going to change majors. Oftentimes it's just a matter of meeting with your academic advisor, department, and then they will kind of let you know how to switch that over. There are some programs, let's say engineering, for example, where it's not an overly complicated process, but depending on how many courses you've taken, it might require kind of an additional review. But as kind of a general rule, it's not overly complicated to change your major. And why I mentioned that it's typically done in the first 2 years is because after that, when you're into your upper level coursework, it's not that you can't change your mind, it's just that it could then extend your study beyond 4 years, because once you get into that upper division coursework, if you then change into a particular, a totally different area, let's say you switch from business to engineering, well, if you don't have the foundational coursework in engineering, you would need to then take those courses before you're ready for upper level courses. So it's really kind of a case-by-case situation, but for the most part, it's not that difficult, and students quite frequently do change majors. So this next question is, how many hours of class do students typically have each week, and how is the homework? So the average course load, it's pretty common for students to take 15 credit hours per week, and that typically equates to the amount of hours students physically in the classroom as a general rule. And so 15 hours is pretty normal. With a student visa, you need to be enrolled in usually like 12 would be the minimum. Some universities don't allow students to take more than 18 or 19 without special permission, because that would be considered a pretty rigorous semester. But the hours in coursework, kind of as a general rule, most universities will tell you that for every hour you spent in class, you should expect a couple hours, 2, maybe 3 outside of class and working on homework and class projects and things like that. So it is a matter of time management and kind of adjusting to that, because you're not physically in the classroom as much, but you still do have quite a lot of work to do that's going to be tied to that. But the nice thing about having that flexible schedule is that it gives you the time and the ability to schedule in things like these experiential learning opportunities, so that you can experience some things without having to worry so much about your course schedule, because you have more time and flexibility there. Great questions. Looks like we have just 2 minutes left. So if there's a final question, I'll take that now. And if not, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Okay, seeing none, I just wanted to thank you all again for participating today. And again, extend my offer to please reach out to me if you do have any questions, either about the University of Missouri or in general. I frequently am fortunate to travel quite a lot with other U.S. universities, so I'm happy to answer kind of general questions you might have about the process. But thank you all for joining me, and good luck with your search process, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.